My name is Shelby Griffith. I graduated in 2016. I was like a junior in college when some of my friends started coming out to me, and I was very aware when that happened that I had one chance to react to them in a way that would determine the course of the rest of our relationship. And I knew, even though I didn't know what to think about LGBT rights at that point, I knew that I didn't want to respond the way that I had been raised to respond. So I basically just listened to them and was there for them, and slowly realized, oh, these are people just like me. They matter. And it seemed as simple as that. And then I graduated college, actually, and realized that I was one of them. So it's been really personal ever since. I would say that response comes from a place of extreme privilege and disdain and an unwillingness to listen, because it's so much more complicated than that. You have monetary factors, you have family factors, you have, like, by the time some kids realize they're queer, they may not want to leave Harding because they may have some bonds there that are really strong and that they value more than they value any potential freedom they think they could maybe find. I know for myself, had I realized that I was queer at the time, I was super attached to the faculty and some of the students there. And also that would have opened up a lot of uncomfortable discussions with my parents because they already weren't cool with the fact that I was becoming a liberal feminist. And so if I had gone home and was like, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to transfer my junior or senior year, they would have been like, what the heck? That's not cool. Why do you want to do that? And I couldn't have had that conversation with them at that point. I realized that I was gay in July of 2016, so a few months after I had graduated. And then I admitted it to myself in writing, 'cause I'm a writer, so I journal a lot. I admitted it to myself in writing for the first time the second week of August, I think. So it took me about 3 weeks to really come to terms with it in a way that I could write it down in a permanent way. And then by the end of August, I had come out to my one really close friend in Memphis, who was kind of like a mentor to me. And then from there, it just became easier and easier because once you, or at least for me, once I came out to myself and once I admitted it to other people, it just kind of became par for the course. Like I needed people to know that about me because it made so much of my life make sense, and so it wasn't something I was going to be able to hide. I came out to my parents about a year, almost a year to the day that I admitted it to myself. I waited until they went, and I had moved to Little Rock at this point, so I wasn't in their house anymore. And I waited until I knew they had left for vacation. And then I mailed them this letter that I had written the day after I moved to Little Rock that explained everything to them. And basically said, if you want to talk about this, please do it in writing because I can't talk to you face to face right now. And they took about 2.5, I guess 3 weeks to respond because they were gone for a while. But about 2 weeks after they got the letter, they wrote me back, and it was just this really short card that said, I don't really remember what they said specifically. All I remember is that one of the phrases they used was deeply concerned. And please don't tell your siblings because that's our job, that's our responsibility. And they basically wanted me to not tell anybody, to not come out publicly until they were ready. So I wrote them back and I said, look, that's just not gonna happen. Like, I'll respect your wishes about my siblings for now. Because I agree that is your prerogative, but I'm coming out in October, and this was beginning of September at this point. And There were a few tense exchanges back and forth, nothing really saying anything, and then they just left it alone. And I thought, okay, well maybe it's fine. Like, maybe they came to terms with it. Maybe they realized that this isn't going away. And then my mom wrote me this really long letter that basically pushed every single one of my buttons and knocked over what little faith I had managed to build in the interim. And the next few months were just really full of a lot of anger and fear and frustration, and it kind of felt like I hadn't gotten anywhere. Because yeah, I had moved to Little Rock, yeah, I had come out to my parents, yeah, everyone in Arkansas knew who I was and loved me for it, but the people who had raised me didn't want that at all. Like, they didn't want that part of me. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. Some friends from school took me in. They're kind of like my aunt and uncle, and they were like, hey, you can come to our house for Thanksgiving, you can come to our house for Christmas. And those were probably the best Thanksgiving and Christmases of my life. It's really good. And then I didn't see my parents again or really talk to them in any meaningful way until this summer, when my sister came for some programs at Harding, and she was going to be staying there for about 3 weeks. And I had planned to visit her when my work schedule allowed, and they emailed me to tell me that I wasn't allowed to see her without one of them in the room, because they didn't trust me to respect their beliefs. And that kind of brought up everything that I thought I had worked through. I was very lucky to have started to disengage from a lot of the relationships that I knew wouldn't survive me coming out. But several of the adults that I really looked up to at my former church back in Memphis, I lost those relationships. Not outright, not in any definitive way. It was just kind of like not responding to texts, or not acknowledging that they had gotten a letter, or not asking, hey, when are you coming home to visit? None of that. No, not at all. I think Harding values money, and I think they value the status quo. And I'm not the status quo, and I have no money. And on top of that, I'm a lesbian, so woo! One of the things that people say all the time is, oh, you're making it up. Like, oh, it can't be that bad. And there's really no way to contextualize it for somebody who hasn't been in that situation. Like, I'm a writer. If I sat down for an hour, I could come up with like 20 metaphors, and they wouldn't even touch it. Because it's so visceral and so personal, and so connected to like your physical existence that it's really hard to replicate in speech or writing. It's just like this constant, what if they're gonna punish me? What can they do? And you just never feel welcome anywhere. That'll do its own. Like, a lot of it is self-perpetuating. Like, they say a few things that glance off the topic, that never really say anything, so that if you put it in writing and you say, and you point to it and you say, look, this is what they said, outsiders will be like, that's not enough to do anything. I would say it gets so much better. Look up the It Gets Better videos on YouTube. I watched those religiously when I was living at home that first year of coming out. And I don't mean it gets better at Harding, though. I mean, you could find spaces where it is very good. Like, I still go back to visit professors. I'm going back soon to visit professors and students and friends. But once you graduate, like, there's no limit to where you can go. You can define what you want to do. Harding is not all there is. My name is Shelby Griffith, and I am your neighbor.